As we learn more about the potential motive behind Wednesday's mass shooting in California, a link to ISIS is being made from a post that Tashfeen Malik made on Facebook pledging her allegiance to an ISIS leader. But does this mean that she and her husband were working with the extremist group? The FBI doesn't believe so.
So far, we have no indication that these killers are part of an organized larger group or form part of a cell. There's no indication that they are part of a network. There is nothing in our holdings about these two killers.
Well, let's get some analysis now from Christian LEUPRECHT, a professor at the Royal Military College of Canada in Kingston and also a security expert. Christian, if in fact the FBI is right here and this is an isolated case of a couple of people who aren't part of a wider terror network, what are the implications for security forces in trying to deal with this kind of threat?
Well, this is the challenge that security forces have really faced over the last 10 years. It's a target-rich environment, so proliferation of these small cells of individuals. I mean, this is very similar to the attacks on Charlie Hebdo. So two people who know each other well, who planned this attack, who might have had help from a couple of other people. And there's just a lot of these type of targets out there and just simply not enough resources to watch all of them. And so security forces have to make very different choices. And in this particular case, it would appear that these individuals had not shown up on security radar at all beforehand. So in addition to all the people that we're already watching, there's the challenge of the people who don't show up on radar or who, for whatever reasons in a democratic state, for instance, a judge has, for instance, decided that you are not allowed to watch.
You study and write about security issues. You travel the world talking to other people about those. And I'm very curious about your Canadian perspective on the focus in the United States on terrorism. Right from the moment of these shootings, and certainly over the last couple of days, a lot of time and energy expended on, is this terrorism? If you know, what kind of terrorism is it? What do you make of that analysis?
Yeah, so I have a couple of concerns about sort of this inflationary use of the term terrorism. That, when we had a similar incident about a year ago in Halifax, and the Minister of Justice in Canada was criticized a little bit by the media for arrests where he didn't refer to as terrorism, and he made it clear that this was a planned mass murder, mass violence, but not directly politically motivated or ideologically motivated. And so I think we need to be very careful, because the moment we call it terrorism, it receives orders of magnitude more attention. And so it might actually encourage more people to move to action if they see that that's how they can become a footnote in history. I'm also concerned about the fact that the moment somebody seems to have Muslim affiliations, then it's much more likely to be termed terrorism. And when we saw a little over a year ago the shooting in Austin, Texas, for instance, where the individual referred to scripture and to God talking to him, that wasn't referred to as terrorism. That was simply referred to as mass violence. And so let's make sure it meets the legal definitions of terrorism in terms of the conditions that are there before we refer to it as terrorism. But it would appear that the FBI believes that those conditions have been met in this case.
And one last thing I'm wondering is given the terrible tragedy here, the number of people killed, other people who are badly injured, what do you think Canadian authorities are doing? Is there any reassessment of security here or potential increased threat here because of what happened in California?
So the government of Canada runs a small outfit in Ottawa called the Integrated Terrorist Assessment Centre. It is essentially an intergovernmental fusion center that also has some provincial representation. So all the national security agencies are represented, and it provides ongoing terrorist assessments to the political executive of Canada and to different agencies and also provincial governments. And so one of the things that they would be doing is looking at this particular incident and see what, if any, reverberations this might have in terms of alerting specific agencies such as CBSA or other national security or government entities with regards to particular changes in stance to combat any changes in risk that they should be taking.
We just have seconds left, but I am curious, based on what you know about this, and I know there's a lot we don't know, but do you think this incident is the kind of thing that would increase the sense of risk in Canada?
There's nothing here that seems to suggest that there's any particular reason for Canada to be concerned, no apparent Canadian connections. And so in that sense, it just means continued vigilance. And it points to the fact that we live in a precarious security environment, both in the continent and in the world.
Always so nice to have your perspective. Christian LEUPRECHT from the Royal Military College of Canada.